welcome to the Radient Pearl Business Circle, where we talk about business, leadership, and self-care. I'm your host, Renee Morgan, founder and CEO of Radient Pearl Coaching and Consulting, certified business and executive coach. Today's guest is a personal, professional business consultant and coach. He has 30 years of experience in military, nonprofit, and commercial leadership coaching and consulting. He's the owner of Crosscutter Enterprises, a coaching and consulting firm, and is a Forbes Coaches Council member. He is a 21-year Air Force veteran and a former consultant for Booz Hamilton, and a strategic business advisor with the Fortune 100 company USAA. He also, along with his wife, owns a 100-acre horse farm with 34 to 40 horses. Today, he's here to talk to us about the Great Resignation. Today, I welcome John Knotts. Hi, John.
Hey, Renee. How you doing?
I'm doing okay. How are you?
I'm doing good.
So tell us a little bit. I've talked to the audience a little bit about your background, but tell us a little bit more.
Well, I got started doing what I'm doing in the Air Force.
Okay.
The Air Force back in 1990 started their total quality management movement, and they called it the Quality Air Force Program. I was at a closure base up in Fort Worth, Texas, and because we were kind of a closure base, there wasn't a whole lot going on. We were downsizing the operation. I had an opportunity to take a whole lot of these courses that they were putting out in this program.
Right.
And I really loved what they were teaching. A lot of the stuff that, especially in the TQM program, is focused on people. It's focused on creating circles of excellence and getting your people engaged, working in teams. So I was a cop in the Air Force at the time.
Wow, I didn't know that. Okay.
Yeah. And I absolutely love this. I was like, this is great for leadership development and how to manage people, how to work in teams, how to lead teams. Then in 1995, I went to a remote assignment. And at the time, the Air Force pushed out, they said, we want 100% of all Air Force personnel. I love 100% because there's no wiggle room there.
Right, exactly, right.
But we want 100% of all Air Force personnel to be trained on the Quality Air Force Program. It was called the Quality Air Force Awareness Program.
Okay.
And I'm at this small site in Turkey, and they went around to the 60 military that were there. They said, who's had any quality training? Right. And I was the only one because I'd had all this stuff from my previous assignment.
Right.
They said, okay, you're going to teach it.
Wow. Okay.
So I started teaching quality awareness and learned more and more about it. Of course, when you start teaching something, you don't want to be the one that gets the stump the dummy questions. So you try to learn as much as you can about it. And I learned and loved it even more and more. And I moved to Ramstein, special duty assignment, bodyguard and personal protection to the 4-star general there and his staff.
Wow. Now,
And
Ramstein is where? That's in Turkey still, or?
It's in Germany. They call it Little America, so it's still in Europe. Okay. But I had the opportunity to retrain in place into a career field called Manpower and Quality.
Wow.
So in 1998, I'd been in the Air Force for 10 years. It was almost to the date, my 10-year anniversary. I retrained into Manpower and Quality, and I became an internal coach and consultant for the Air Force, working as an industrial engineer, strategic planner, and process improvement practitioner.
Wow.
And I have continued to do that the rest of my career. I retired 11 years later in 2008. As you said in the intro, I went to go work for Booz Hamilton for 3 years. That's really where I kind of cut my teeth.
Yeah.
Then I went to work for a company here in San Antonio, headquartered here, called the United Services Automobile Association, USAA. Big company.
Big, huge company.
And definitely. They're a Fortune 500 company, but they're in the 100 range now. They were 200 when I started, but now they're in the 100 range.
Okay.
And I worked for them. Initially I worked for them as a coach and consultant.
Okay.
And I was hired 6 months later and
Mhm.
continued with them for 7 years.
Yeah. Yeah.
2019, I had started my company in 2008. We all have the side businesses, right?
Yeah.
And
Exactly.
if you don't, well, maybe you should start thinking about
Start
one.
thinking about it. Yep.
But and that's like a whole talk and another thing.
Yeah.
But
That's another business circle interview.
yeah, but
Uh-huh.
I ended up leaving in 2019. I published my first business book,
Wow.
and then I went to go work full time for myself. I had
Okay.
a client
Awesome.
8 months later
Wow.
hire me out of
Okay.
the job that I was doing. I was doing fractional chief operating officer work with them. I really
Right.
loved the company, so I
Right.
got picked up. But 6 months later, COVID hit, and
Okay.
we saw it. We saw it like 2 months before it was coming. We knew it was happening, and I sat down with the CEO and I said, "You really need to lay me off
Wow.
because I'm going to be the person that's too expensive,
Hmm.
and you can save 3-4 people if you just lay me off."
Wow.
And so they did. In March 20th of 2020,
Wow.
I was laid off, and
Hmm.
I went to go work for myself again, struggling, of course, because you'd canceled all your contracts and
Yeah.
stepped away from the business I was teaching in school and a college.
Yeah.
And I'd left that. I even stopped writing for Forbes at the time because I was
Wow.
so basically giving them 110%.
Right. Absolutely. Yeah.
So, but I've been doing this ever since,
Yeah.
1998, when I officially became a career, either internally or externally.
Right. Right. Yeah. I think in 2020, I think that's when everybody sort of shifted, and you know, um, you
Lots
know,
of pivots.
lots of pivots. And so you've sustained throughout that time, and being a part of the Forbes Coaches Council is just amazing in itself. It's not something where you just get in and then you just kind of fly. You've written several articles over the years.
29.
20, yeah, 29 articles. There we go. And they've been phenomenal and very, more so thought provoking, I would say. And so this recent article that you wrote about the Great Resignation, when should you be concerned? Particularly, I was interested because I was part of the Great Resignation myself in leaving my corporate job at Deloitte to start my own venture. And so it was always a passion of mine to have my own business. But what I was noticing is that, as I was leaving, there was just like this influx of people that I was seeing on LinkedIn and just friends, and just all these folks are just taking a break. And so, with a lot of folks, I don't think they recognize what was happening. And so in your article, you kind of address it. It's like, if you've been under a rock, where have you been if you don't know what's happening? So I guess my first question to you is, what is the Great Resignation? How do you define it?
Well, the Great Resignation was actually coined by A&M professor
Okay.
back in, I believe it was 2020, Dr. Klotz.
Okay.
And he's the one who created the term. It's been called other things. People call it the big shift, the great
Yeah.
reshuffle, because
Yes.
some people are moving jobs.
Yeah.
But the key thing, and I just before this call,
Hmm.
I validated that the numbers still remain the same, that there are 11.3 million
Wow.
jobs that are open in the United
Wow.
States today. Now,
Amazing.
this is the Bureau of Labor Statistics.
Hmm.
They reported it today, July 6th.
Wow.
So everybody knows when this was being filmed.
Yes, exactly.
But,
No,
but
the numbers switched.
11.3 million jobs are left open. So just go anywhere. Go out to eat, go to any store,
Yeah.
and you will witness
Hmm.
the Great Resignation.
Yeah.
In big companies, you don't see it quite as much,
True.
but I know the people that are left behind are feeling it
Yeah.
because people aren't taking the jobs.
Yeah. They're taking that break, that time
They're
away.
they're
Yeah.
doing something else. And
Yeah.
that's kind of a big question that has been going around is, what are they doing?
Right.
That's the kind of like the big thing. And I think that over the coming years, we're going to see, between what happened with the pandemic
Right.
what's still happening and the impact it's going to have on whether or not we have a recession, but
Right.
also what happened in business and what caused all that.
Right. Yeah, because you've got to see the trend. I mean, it's like we're still in the research stage, right? We've seen
Yeah.
what happened in 2020. 2021 was sort of that, okay, we're recovering. We're in 2022 now. There's still recovery, but we're still not out of the woods. And I think a lot of people are still having those conversations with themselves, with their families about what they're going to do next. So, you know, I'd say the next 5 or 10 years we'll see. But, you know, in your research, what are your opinions about it? When do you think we'll kind of get out of this, I guess, resignation or shift phase?
I think that we're a good chance we're coming into a recession. I mean, like everything is pointing at that. And one way or another, if we don't, it's still going to be financially difficult for companies. But what's going to happen is that the jobs that are out there are going to start going away because companies can't afford to fill those positions.
Yeah.
And people that decided, you know what, I'm just going to take a break.
Yeah.
Well, that break is becoming very expensive.
Yeah.
I know a lot of stories of people that, like I said, we're just going to get rid of everything and we're going to move to another country, or we're going to go on vacation with the kids so that they have the opportunity to see these things during this. But travel is difficult and everything's becoming more expensive.
That's true.
So what we're going to see is a situation, I think, especially in the United States, but it could be elsewhere in the world, where the government's going to have to step in like they did in the pandemic, because we're going to see unemployment spiking because people are going to start going on to unemployment.
True.
They're not going to be able to find jobs, or people are like, they're not going to be eligible for unemployment because of the nature of why they left.
Yeah.
And then there's going to be this whole section of unemployed people that won't be able to get unemployment and won't be able to find jobs.
Yeah.
And we've seen a lot of people, you've seen it too, during the pandemic, that either lost their job or left their job, and they started working for themselves, and they started picking up what I would call the easy work, the stuff that doesn't require a degree, it doesn't require a certification or a license to do it. And they're throwing out their shingle and they're saying, I can help you with X.
Yes.
And unfortunately, a lot of people are getting bit by these people that really don't know what they're doing.
I've been bit myself. No, I mean, it's more of, coming from large business and then coming out, just working with people you trust, that someone knows what they're doing. And then the next thing you know, it's like you figure it out after a month or thousands of dollars later that, okay, this isn't really a fit for where you are. And I know in the coaching industry, especially, they are going to start cracking down, I believe, in terms of credentialing and certifications, or even having the experience to be coaching someone, because there's a lot of folks that are out there saying, I'm a coach, but they've never coached individuals before, don't know the technique, don't have the years of experience. Not to say you shouldn't try, to do something, that you feel passionate about, but there's always a framework behind it, right? You don't want to hurt anyone with kind of like trying something out. You want to at least, have some idea about how you lead.
I would have a recommendation for people that are like, I'd like to learn this. I'd like to try it out. Go to work for one of the firms out there that's doing this as a living, because you will work with fellow people and you will be protected and you will be able to learn and grow into it. But throwing out your shingle. So like, I'm a business coach and consultant, and actually kind of put those words together. This is a phrase now called Coachsultant. Okay. Because coaching, in a sense, you don't even have to know what you're talking about.
Right.
Because all you're really doing when you're coaching is just asking leading questions.
Right.
A lot of what questions, how questions, why questions, and staying away from the close-ended questions. So with those people, well, I'd like to see, certification because, formal certification, because with formal certification comes registered coaching hours, the
Right.
formal training and coaching.
Right.
But
Right.
so when it comes to me, I work with business owners that are looking to grow, scale, or improve their business.
Right.
And the concept is that you don't know what to do.
Right.
You know what you're doing, but you don't know how to run the business. You don't know how to improve the business. You don't know how to grow the business.
Right.
So you hire somebody like me who comes in and helps you get there. If I just sat there and asked you a bunch of questions and hope that you figure it out, you wouldn't pay me for very long.
Absolutely.
So it's kind of this different expanse. But I've owned businesses, 7 of them total. I've started, currently run 5.
Right.
So I know what it's like running a business, even something. We own the largest equestrian business in San Antonio, Texas.
Oh, wow. Wow.
We started in 2016 and we are now the largest. 100 acres with 40 horses on property.
Wow.
And we're going to grow to 60.
Oh, wow.
I got a whole team here that we're going to, as a matter of fact, they're all working on the arena right now.
Oh,
putting in a French drain in the arena. So it's like, but understanding like all of these things. And when you work with a business coach, you want to ask, like, you ever run a business? Do you understand? Have you ever been a CEO of a business?
Exactly. I mean, there are a lot of people out there. Like you said, it's the coach consultant, I guess, term. You have to consult at some point, right? It's not necessarily asking questions. And I think for me, and even when I took my coaching certification, that was very difficult because I've been a consultant for 20 years. I'm like, okay,
the approach for us is totally different.
Totally different, right? And so, I do a mixture of both in my practice in my firm. It's more of, it works for the clients that I have because I can ask you a question, but then I got to give you that hardcore, strategy or advice based upon my experience working in large business and having my own business. So I think we're going to see that shift too, in terms of trying to figure out how you mesh the coaching and consulting together, because I don't think you can have one without the other. That's just my opinion. But there's credentialing, and then there's a certification, and then there's experience, right? And so I think all of them are valuable. But I think at the end of the day, it's more so the results that you can get for your clients. And certainly you've done that over the years. So how can companies become successful during this time, or maintain, the company morale when employees are leaving?
I will say that that's one of the challenges that businesses have, as they constantly are looking at the extrinsic benefits.
Right.
Okay. Right. They're trying to increase pay to win people over. People want to be paid what they're worth.
Yes.
That's important. They want to have the pay and benefits that they deserve.
Right.
In today's world, the cost of everything's going up. Right. But the cost, the actual pay for employees is not.
Very true.
So you see all these companies that are literally doubling their prices. You go out to eat anywhere in your favorite restaurant and you're going to pay twice as much.
Yes.
But the question is, are the people there making twice as much? Because in reality, if they gave them the raises that they needed to give them, then they would probably be like 3 times as much the cost. So they're not.
That's true.
And so what's happening is employees are starting to struggle to just be able to go out and do things. Right. Because everything's getting more expensive. Gas is more expensive. And luckily, in the virtual world we live in today, a lot of people don't have to drive back and forth to work.
Not so
they're saving that. But like that's a big thing when it comes to pay, is that you're equitable. You're not, if your strategy all relies around pay and benefits, then you're missing the mark, because there are other things that are important when it comes to an employee.
Okay.
When you talk about morale, so let's really get to know our people and what they care about. One of the things that I've noticed a lot is that especially the bigger the company, is that they create a job description.
Okay.
Yeah, it's logical, right? You want to tell people what the job is.
Right.
But the problem is you hire somebody into a job description,
Mm-hmm.
and then you don't expect them to like do anything outside of that.
Right. Right.
Well, I can tell you this, that if I was hired by a company today, a job description would really bother me.
Yeah.
Because I can do a whole lot for a company.
Yeah.
So really you should be hiring people, not the job. And when you hire people and you employ people, then you get to leverage their strengths. Yeah, there's like, yeah, we've got this job and we're going to hire you into it. But this is where we're going as a company.
Yeah.
So I know that article that you talked about aligning people to the vision of the company, the mission and the vision of the company.
Yes.
And first off, most companies, they don't really have it. They might have it on the wall, but they don't live it. But the thing is that if your employees don't feel like they're part of that, they're not going to be engaged.
Absolutely.
That's like the number one thing that engages people. You go to the Gallup survey or any survey that does engagement that's like Gallup, because Gallup's kind of like the industry standard. And the number one thing that's going to impact whether or not people are engaged at work is whether or not they have a mission and a vision that actually gets them up in the morning. I can tell you that what I do, and I bet what you do, we do for free if we could.
Yeah. Yeah, we got to pay the bills, but
But I love it.
We love it. Yes, absolutely. Yeah, I mean,
and that's the reason why I write. Nobody pays me to write for Forbes.
Right.
Nobody pays me to write for Authority 5.0. I write because I want to share. I want to share information.
Yeah.
I want people to grow. I want to see people successful.
Absolutely.
I don't get paid for that.
Yeah. And that's the thing. It's like, because you have a passion, we both have a passion, and we've talked over this last year about wanting people to grow, wanting to see how, you might see a framework or someone have a philosophy somewhere, and then you're like, no, I don't think that's what it is. But then you offer your advice. Sometimes they take it, sometimes they don't. But then, people, they hit their head and then they come back, right? So it's and you just kind of gradually, still want to help because you have a passion for it. So it's including like you said, including your employees in the vision of what you're trying to do, and they feel part of something. That is so important at the end of the day. I try to share that with my team as much as possible. They're on board and they're looking at where we're going. In other companies, I've seen them share visions of different, parts of the company and where we're going. And it's always sort of like pumped. I even see it on social media where, companies are just, pumping, this is our new vision. This is our new face. But again, people have to feel part of it. So if there's someone in the company that doesn't feel part of it, they're just going to feel detached and go somewhere where they do feel included in what, in what they're doing over there. So I think it's kind of, hard for, I think, a company when you're trying to offer so much money, but I think that the intangible is more important, I think, for a lot of people.
It is.
And that's the key there. So in your article in Forbes, that's what it's talking about. It's talking about connecting your people with the company. You also talk about, when people are working from home, they're working more hours. So talk a little bit more about that in your article. Yeah.
So I actually witnessed this with my wife because she's been working from home even before the pandemic.
Wow.
And now that everybody is working from home, people don't see what you're doing. Yeah. So there's two sides to this double-edged sword here. First off is that there's a lot of managers out there that are very uncomfortable with the fact that they can't see what their employees are doing.
Yeah.
And it's become a lot of times where people are like, they don't even want to show themselves on video when they're on a virtual call, whether it be Teams or Google Meet or it be a Zoom call. They don't want to turn on their camera. And that's like a big discussion now. Should they not?
Yeah.
Because out of sight, out of mind. That's the
Absolutely.
term.
It is true.
And
Yeah.
so managers get really worried about that. But what they don't see, and this is what I see because I look at what's going on, I dig behind the scenes. I see where employees are getting up earlier to get work done when it's quiet and nobody's bothering them. They don't have any appointments on their schedule.
Yeah.
I see that because you don't see somebody, they're
Right.
just booking time on calendars.
Yeah.
Now, luckily, with my world, I use a calendar app. I use Calendly, and
Right.
it protects my calendar because people can't take time
Yeah.
that's booked.
Yeah.
But in
Yeah.
a business, in a company, people are overbooking all day long
Oh
because
my
they
God.
think, oh, I'm more
Yeah.
important to whatever they're doing.
Yes.
And so you think about that attitude, and it's like,
Yeah.
and I can't tell you the number of times that my wife has been like triple booked.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah.
I see this with companies where, especially the broader they are,
Yeah.
that one part of the business will be in one time zone. So you're out in the Eastern Coast, so you're in a different time zone than I am.
Right.
And they'll block their lunch, but they'll book over your lunch
Yes.
without thinking about it. And I've seen people that on the East Coast that'll set a meeting where somebody's going to get up at 4 to 6 o'clock in the morning on the West Coast.
Yeah.
Like, you're not thinking about the employees, are you?
Yeah.
And then what I also see is that people end up working longer hours.
Yes. Yeah,
So
because they're trying to capture the time zones.
exactly.
Yeah.
And they're also, like, maybe they're doing laundry and going and picking up the kids. Okay.
Yeah. But
But I do it. I mean, like,
yeah.
we all, we're at home,
Right.
but they will work other hours outside of the work day and they're getting work done. So it's really about what's the productivity look like? Are
Right.
they being as or more productive in
Right.
their job? Are they
Right.
not getting work done? Because that's really the problem.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
not about whether or not they're sitting at their desk,
Right.
which is what, some people makes them feel comfortable.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think too, with us being at home and, having the demands of, a job, saying, okay, I need this here, I need that there, the time zones, shifts, and trying to work those longer hours. Your family's there, they're seeing all this happening. So there's more, pressure there. And then people make decisions based upon that. And I think setting expectations, especially in this time, as we're going through and recovering through the pandemic, is going to be very important.
Yeah.
There were a lot of people that, like you said, that were working before the pandemic from home, and now the newbies, as they say, are working from home. They're like, okay, I can work on this tomorrow night, or or tonight after I pick up the kids, or after I make lunch. And I think a lot of people are still sometimes trying to follow that 8-hour or that 10-hour time frame, whereas I guess I look at it more like, is something on fire? Is someone getting hurt? What is the priority of the day, right? And I always used to ask my team this: okay, what's the priority of the day? What do we need to get done? That sometimes shifts, right? But we've got to communicate, and it's more over communication, I think, at home. So it's a lot of, I think, managing the time and expectation, and that's exactly what you talk about in your article. It's more of avoiding that working longer hours, because essentially you're going to get burned out if you're working those longer hours, and you're going to leave and say, you know what, I'm done.
Right.
And that's, I think, what's happening over time. I think only, especially in my own experience, I was ready to just be out on my own. I knew I was going to be working long hours, essentially, at the startup, but I was realistic about it. And I think a lot of people, sometimes they jump out into the Great Resignation and say, I'm just free, and without the expectation of knowing what the next what having that business is, or having that next job is. You've got to kind of look at the whole spectrum before you leave. But
Yep.
Yeah. The other question that I have for you, you talk about professional development plans and how it helps companies and their employers. So how can that help employers when folks are leaving through the Great Resignation?
I went to go work with a company soon after I went full time for myself.
Mm-hmm.
And they had a bunch of installers. It was a
Mm-hmm.
very service oriented, structured organization. And I remember the HR director coming to me and she said, yeah, we have this guy who's been working here for 4 years and he's all upset because we just hired a barista,
Mm-hmm.
no installation experience in what they do.
Okay.
And we're paying him more an hour than we paying the guy that's been working here for 4 years.
Wow. Wow.
And I asked one question.
Mm-hmm.
Where's the plan for growth?
Absolutely.
We don't have it.
Oh, wow. Wow.
So in 15 minutes, we established, we went in and we looked and said, what's everybody getting paid? What are their grades,
Right.
in this job?
Right.
And what are the expectations at each grade?
Right.
And we turned that into, okay, financially, here's the ranges. Boom, 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 boom. And it was,
Yeah.
like hourly employee type stuff.
Yeah.
And what happened was a bunch of people got raises because they hadn't seen raises in the years that they had been there because there was no standard.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then aligned to that was now a standard. I mean, this is in 15 minutes we did this. This
Wow.
isn't like a 3-week or a 6-year project. This
Wow.
was 15 minutes on a whiteboard.
Wow.
We put this thing together and now we knew exactly what it took to get to the next level.
Right.
We handed that over. We developed it into a package. That took a little
Right.
bit more work. And we
Right.
handed it over to the supervisors
Mm-hmm.
who were now like, oh my gosh, this is awesome.
Yeah.
I can now sit down with my employees and tell them what's expected to get to the next level. And what are you going to get paid when you do it?
Yes. It's the progression.
What do we look for when we go work for a company? Do we want to sit there like a mushroom and get crap thrown on us all day long and just love it? No, we want to grow.
Yes.
We want to flourish in this company.
Right.
We want opportunities. We want to know where we can go.
Right. Right.
Again, I'll go back to that job description. That job description locks you in. It's like, oh, we hired you to do that. You're not going to do anything else.
Right. Right.
And so people, they're like, I see no future in this company for myself because there's no path to follow. So I'll go somewhere else. Maybe I'll just do my own thing because I can create my own path.
Yes. Yeah.
But that's where, in almost every company I go to, talk to all the people that you work with, the businesses you work with, and ask them that question.
Right.
Do you have development plans for your people? Right. Are they written? Are they following them?
Right.
Now, when I was in the Air Force, it was very clear.
Right.
We had a job standard and we had a growth program, and you knew exactly what you needed to do as you grew in your job. You knew where your opportunities were. It's not like we had a lot of control over our lives, but we could control that, and we could get better at what we were doing so that we could then get promoted. And we knew, like, when it came to becoming an NCO, we had a book to study and we had a test to take and we had specific things to achieve.
Right.
It was all very clear. And I, like at a certain point, the failure was on you.
Right. Yeah, because there was a path for you.
Exactly.
There was a formula already that was already written out.
And I think that's a big point, is when you have a clear path, when you've developed clear paths for your employees, you've established, they often refer to it in HR as the competency model. And what are the competencies required at every level in this company?
Right.
When you have that and it's clearly outlined and everybody knows what it is, then you no longer have to lead. People can lead themselves. And they can climb that ladder. As long as there's openings and they're aware of it, they can just move into those jobs because they can do what's required to get the job done and to get promoted and recognized and all that kind of stuff. But when it isn't, then when people do get promoted, everybody thinks it's for some other reason than the job.
Right.
when they get recognized, it's always because it's, somebody's best friend, or,
Yeah.
because there's no clear delineation as to what's expected.
Yes, yes, absolutely. It's promotion, knowing the journey. It's like having that success path is really important, because people know, okay, there's a point at which I need to get to in order to get to the next level. And a lot of times, you'll see, new companies or other companies that have something, but then it's not fully developed, or they haven't developed it because, like you said, the job description is saying you're only doing this. But if a person sees progression and that they can get to a next level based upon this criteria, then they'll work hard for it, right? With larger companies, there's also other factors that play, right? Metrics and your time, how much time you're spending when you're working, right? And then how much money or revenue are you bringing in? So there are a lot of factors that go into it, but I think if people know, then that's a way to kind of keep them knowing, okay, I've got to do these things, instead of saying, okay, you know what, I don't see a path here. I'm going to go somewhere else where I can see clearly what's going to be happening for me. Again, no one expected the pandemic, no one expected the shift, but now we're in it. There are greater conversations that need to happen, just like this one, about the Great Resignation, what's actually happening on the small business level, the mid-size and the large business level, and how they're all coping with the shift that's happening.
I can tell you that the Great Resignation actually started before the pandemic.
Okay.
People were getting a little fed up with the companies and the way they were being treated. What happened during the pandemic is that it became very clear in a lot of companies that employees were nothing but a number. They were on a balance sheet.
Right. Okay.
And so I said in the very beginning that I told the CEO to lay me off because I was the most expensive person in the company.
Right.
It was a money decision. You know what he told me? I'll never lay you off. You are the most important person in this country or company.
Right.
Like, your job is secure. Those were exact words out of his mouth.
Wow.
A month later, I was laid off because it was a business decision.
Yes.
But the problem is when we treat it like a business decision and we don't treat our people like family.
Right.
And this is one of the things that a lot of people, until they get into that CEO job and they start getting employees, because you can be a solopreneur and never see this. You start to realize that you actually are the matriarch or the patriarch of a family.
Yes.
And people will come to you with the craziest stuff. Here at the horse farm, we've bought people vehicles.
Oh, wow.
We've gotten people out of jail.
Wow.
We do a lot. I mean, we have 2 people that live here on property with us.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And we've had others. And we've helped people. My property manager today, I helped him build his own side business, which is pretty much his full-time business. And now he just kind of works here on the side.
Wow.
And he told us last week, this floored me. He said, you don't have to pay me anymore. I'm making enough money at my business that I just do this for fun.
Oh, wow. That's amazing. But that goes back to our point we were talking about. You got to love what you're doing.
Right. Right. But, people aren't really taking care of their employees. They're not seeing them as people.
Yeah.
They're not understanding what's really going on. Yeah. I had a company during, the way everybody's going into the pandemic. And this was a small call center. There's about 25 people. They had a lady that was the president of the company. And she came to me and she said, hey, we've always worked in a building. We don't even know the first thing about going work from home.
Oh, wow.
And they were not considered, a company that could stay in the building. And of course she didn't want that because she's like, I kind of care about the safety of my employees. And I really, maybe I could hide under the radar. I've known a few CEOs that, said, what the heck, I'm just going to do it.
Right. But
we went and I told her, I said, this is what we're going to do. we're going to actually go and visit each one of the employees. It's not very many visits, really, 23, visits, I think.
Right.
And we're going to see the environment that your employees are going to have to work in.
Right.
And at first, this was not a exciting thing. People were like, I don't know about that.
Exactly.
I don't know if I want my boss, the president of the company, coming into my house.
Right. Yeah.
But
that's a different experience.
but what happened was we did it, and we ended up going to this one lady's house. She had 5 kids.
Oh, wow.
Okay.
Okay.
Single parent.
Okay.
Her mother and father were taking care of her kids. Okay.
Okay.
And they were worried about their health.
Okay.
So they were staying at home. Like everybody was being told to do.
Right.
And she had to go work from home. So she has 5 kids.
Right.
And she doesn't have an office.
Right.
She has a little kitchen table, that everybody would eat at, that has now become Office Central. And she is in doing basically she's a call center, contact center.
Yeah.
And the boss now sees this.
Mm-hmm.
The president saw all of this.
Wow.
And as a company, everybody started to realize the things that other people were dealing with
at home. Yeah.
At home, and what was happening. And, the employees, they got together. So that helped a lot because she knew exactly what they were dealing with. She said she's got a really nice office. She had a nanny that was taking care of her kid.
Wow.
Like her life was totally different.
Yeah.
But now she realizes, oh, okay, this is, and it's probably where she came from.
Yeah.
It probably didn't start with that.
Right.
But what happened was, this is the coolest thing, is after I left, I got an email from the president of the company. And she said that the employees got together and they created a fund for other employees when they're struggling like her.
Oh, wow.
And they were actually, they created a nonprofit organization.
Wow.
And it was a small little nonprofit, and they all donated money into it.
Right.
And what they were doing is they were giving out grants to employees that were struggling with things. And I think it came about because I talked about the Air Force as a program.
Right.
When you have an enlisted member or an officer, I don't know if officers can participate, but I know enlisted definitely can.
Mm-hmm.
Called the Air Force Aid Program. And when they run into hard times, the military steps in. Right. And there's a first sergeant in every company, every organization in the Air Force. And that first sergeant's job is to know the pulse of the employees and what's going on. And they run these programs, and they get people involved. And I've seen this firsthand. I know the impact of it. And I was like, that is like an amazing activity. Now, that lady with the 5 kids will probably stay with that company for quite a long time.
A long time, yeah.
Because people are taking care of her.
Yeah.
And it's not about the money. It's about people actually caring.
Right. The experience. Experience. Yeah. I will say, before I left my company, it was very hard. It was a family, and each family member came to me and said, "No, don't leave." It's like pulling. I was like, "No, I gotta go." But yeah, I would say that's the hardest thing, is when you have people that care. Yeah. And you have an experience with your job that you understand, and that the company you work for really cares about your well-being. And in the Great Resignation, I really, hope and pray that a lot of employers realize that it's about the care, right? Promotion is good, money's good always, but the care that you have for me as an individual is so much more important than all of that other stuff, that I can relate to you on a personal level, that in my life, right? Or in a person's life. And I think with that employee with 5 kids, with the CEO going in there, it gave her, I'm sure, a broader perspective on what she needs to do.
Oh, absolutely. She knew. And so this is when I sit down with people in, it's leadership and management coaching,
Mm-hmm.
consulting, sometimes executive coaching, but it's more in the, the directors and executive directors, managerial type roles.
Right.
I always have this thing. It came from the military. It's know your troops.
Yeah. Yeah.
So every conversation that you start with employees should start with something personal to deepen your knowledge and understanding of what they're going through, what they're dealing with.
Yeah.
And the more that you learn about them, take notes, keep a record of the things that you know, spouses' names, children names, if they're going to school, what are they going to school for? Where are they going to school? So that you can have that conversation and you can say, so how did that test go last week? Did you do good?
Yeah.
And they're like, wow, this person sees me.
Yes. Yes.
Instead, what happens is we come in and say, how are we doing on that report?
Yeah. Yeah. And then it's like you're cringing now. Yeah.
And now I'm a number on a spreadsheet.
Right. Right.
And so it's and what'll happen is when you know your troops, when you know your people, you will know when something's off.
Yes. Yes.
You'll feel it. You'll sense it way before, and you can walk up to them and say, "Hey, let's go grab some coffee or something, and let's talk."
Yeah.
I'm sensing something.
Yeah.
And now it's like, wow, you know me.
Right. Exactly. Especially high profile, high pressure.
And in today's world where a lot of people are out of job, like a lot of empty jobs in these companies, that means everybody's picking up the slack.
Yeah.
Everybody's working extra hours. Everybody's doing more work. And then when you have them all working from home and they're juggling everything that's going on, at least we don't have although there are a lot of people I think that went to homeschooling, but we don't have, kids that are forced to, be at home and take courses online and all this kind of stuff. It's what are they dealing with? If you don't know this, you won't see it.
Definitely. It's really important. So as we close out, because we could talk about this topic for forever, right? And it will be a continuing topic. I'm sure we'll have a panel discussion on it at some point. But what 3 tips or takeaways can you give to business owners and leaders, executive leaders, on how they can prepare more, or even, just, what should they do as the Great Resignation continues?
So I have kind of one tip, but I'll break it into 3 steps.
Okay.
Every business should have and be using a plan to run their business. And this doesn't happen very often. This is the number one reason that businesses fail. I know there's a lot of, they'll come up with lists of top 10 reasons, top 15 reasons. But if you look at every reason on there, you can say, could you have planned for that? Did you plan for that?
Right.
Obviously it happened, so you didn't plan for it. But so the first thing is, so break it down into 3 steps. Number 1 is that you create an executable plan. Do not download something off the internet and fill it out and stick it on your computer because that makes you feel good.
Right.
Create something that has action behind it.
Absolutely.
That is measurable and you can grow with this plan.
Right.
Then every year and once a quarter, pull the plan out and plan for the next quarter and update that plan every year.
Yeah.
Make sure that it's current, it's active. I've talked to people, oh yeah, I have a plan. Can I see it?
Yeah.
I'm going to have to find it on my computer somewhere, or I've got it filed away. I'm like, then you're not using it. It's not an active part of your life.
Right.
And third is that every week you are doing things measurably to move the needle on your plan.
Yes. Yes.
If you're doing those 3 things, your business is going to be super successful.
Absolutely.
And you're going to be able to get through this Great Resignation because you've actually you've planned for what could happen. Because with planning comes what if situations. We call it scenario planning.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh, well, like what happens if, the banks, the interest rates go way up and I can't get any loans for anything. What happens if my employees, half of my employees decide to leave? Or what
Yeah.
happens if I get more work than I can handle and I can't hire people?
Right.
You can create all kinds of scenarios, and then you can put in place
Let's see.
what
Yeah.
are the plans that I need to have situated. You had said at one point in this discussion that we couldn't have planned for a pandemic.
Right. Well, yeah.
Yes, we could.
Okay.
Could we plan for a pandemic? No.
Right.
But could we plan for complete company shutdown?
Right.
Could we plan for something like that?
Okay.
Planning is so important. And if
Absolutely.
there's anything that people who are watching this right now walk away with, is that they have an executable plan for their business that they use every day to move the needle.
Yes. So one more question before we go. We always ask folks that come on, experts, what's your self-care regimen?
So I own a horse farm. And
Right.
if you've ever worked with horses,
Mm-hmm.
you'll actually discover they have an ability.
Yes.
And we actually leverage that. We have an equitherapy program here. We work with veterans who struggle with post-traumatic stress.
Wow.
I've worked with executives, and I've done some business coaching around equitherapy.
Mm-hmm.
So, a large thing is the property as a whole. It's 100 acres.
Yeah.
24/7 operations. You're obviously going to be out and about all the time.
Yeah.
And working with horses is extremely relaxing experience. If you just get frustrated, just go out and groom a horse, take them for a walk, let them graze for, it's bonding time with horses. But I love reading.
Yes.
Okay. But really, I love reading because reading fills my need to write. So more so I like to write. So the more ideas that I can fill in my head, and obviously you can see this is not a fake background.
Yeah.
So the more ideas that you can fill in your head,
right.
The more ideas that I can put on paper. And in my PhD program, I did a lot of research and writing, and I learned, where to grab all these bits and dibs and drabs and all that. So those are some things that I love to do. I love traveling and taking pictures and playing golf.
Wow.
All of those three things over the last several years have not been as much, but I'm actually on vacation right now.
Oh, okay.
During this, so
thank you for joining us.
But this is why I love doing this. So I'm going to, I don't have like back-to-back calls all day long. I can, definitely do this, but it's nice to be able to do what you love to do.
Yeah, definitely, and that's self-care. So thank you, John, for joining us today. I'd love to have you come back and talk to our members and talk about, just business in general, but I'm glad you were able to come on this business circle to talk about what you do and the Great Resignation. So your website for Crosscutter is www.crossctr.com.
Yep.
Is that where they can find you?
Yes. LinkedIn. I tell you, LinkedIn, every day I post, every day it's content. It's all, I want to create discussion around topics that are important that we need to talk about in business and success. Because I work with people as well as I work with businesses. Businesses are run by people, so it's pretty much just working with people.
Right.
But on my website, which you shared there, I have all my publications. Only 2 of them actually cost money. You have to go to Amazon to buy them. Everything else is free. All the podcasts, this podcast, it will be on there.
Okay.
So I share all of this stuff to help people. It's being a success incubator.
Yeah.
If it helps one person, I've done my job.
Oh, wow. That's amazing. You have been a wealth of knowledge, and we appreciate your time. For folks out there that want to find out about our Radient Pearl Business Circle and more about what we do, you can go to www.radiantpearl.com. You can go to radiantpearl.com/subscribe to subscribe to our newsletter and to get more information about what we do. At the end of this video, you'll see John's handles for his LinkedIn, Instagram, Facebook, I think Twitter pages. And so you can find him there and find out more about what he does, and also, I'm sure, his horses too. So, all righty. Well, thank you guys again for joining us. And thank you again, John. Have a wonderful day.